and thank you for joining us for the information session for the 2026 Antigua and Barbuda Summer Abroad Program. So we wish to acknowledge first the land on which the University of Toronto operates. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. Today, this meeting place is still the home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. So we'll start with some brief introductions. So we have with us today the course instructor, Professor Kamari Clark. She's the director of the Center for Criminology and Socio-Legal Studies and Distinguished Professor of Transnational Justice and Socio-Legal Studies. So she will be talking a little bit later about the course, about the academic side, and how it ties into our site as well. And I'm Genevieve Steidman, so I'm the program coordinator for several summer abroad programs, including the new Antigua program. And I have with us also on the back end, my colleague, program manager, Selena Cheng. She will be helping out with the Q&A and also dropping some helpful links into the chat as we go along. So keep an eye on those. So we'll start with an overview of summer abroad, and then we'll get to the details about the Antigua program. We'll talk about costs and financial aid, as well as how to apply. Then we'll hear from our course instructor about the academics and a little bit more about what to expect when you're studying in Antigua. We'll also review some accessibility and EDI resources. That's equity, diversity, and inclusion, which we have on our website. And then we'll wrap it up with some next steps and what you can expect in terms of the timeline going forward. So please feel free to use the Q&A module for any questions as we go along. As this is a webinar, you should be posting them in the Q&A, and you can usually access it by hovering over your Zoom tool ribbon. When you post questions there, we will see them, and then as they are answered in the session, answered questions will appear there. So keep an eye on that even if you don't have a question, because other students will be posting questions and the answers will appear there. And also this recording will be made available on our website by next week. So you'll be able to share it with maybe friends or family. You can also go back and review it if you'd like to. So let's get started with what is summer abroad. So summer abroad gives you the opportunity to earn a full Y credit during just 3 to 4 weeks during the summer term. It's one full credit, and it's a U of T credit, not a transfer credit. So that's how it's a little bit different from an exchange. We get a lot of questions about the difference. So here it's a U of T credit, which means it can fulfill program, breadth, and distribution requirements. And also the grade appears on your record and counts towards your CGPA, just like a regular on-campus course would. Our courses are taught by U of T faculty. And you also have access to on-site non-academic support while you're there. So unlike some exchanges where you're studying independently at another university, here you're with another cohort of U of T students and faculty, and we also have on-site support for you for any non-academic things that may come up. We always keep our class sizes small. For this particular program, it would be between 20 and 25 students maximum. We also give you an opportunity to work really closely with your professor and colleagues. And that's something, especially at a large university like U of T, you might be used to most of your classes having a couple hundred people in them. This way, we keep our classes small, and you really get to have those close interactions with your colleagues and professor. And finally, experiencing what you learn. It's a unique opportunity to not just be learning in the textbook and learning with your readings and lectures, but going out, seeing what you're learning about, and really being there and being immersed in it. We also offer other resources that are part of the Summer Abroad package. So we have a pre-departure orientation, which is closer to the start of the program, where we'll get into even more details about what to expect on site. You'll meet your on-site academic coordinators and non-academic coordinators as well. And we provide a great deal of safety abroad resources, and that's through our online student guide. So our offices are located at Woodsworth College. This is the building behind me on St. George Street, but our programs are open to all students, no matter what campus you're studying at, no matter which faculty you're in as well. So there are a lot of benefits to summer abroad. There are three kind of areas that we've noticed, mainly through hearing from our students about what they've gained most from doing a summer abroad program. So first of all, there's the academic benefits. So you're doing a full Y course condensed into 4 weeks of study. And although this is a very intensive academic experience, it's also a unique opportunity to really focus in on one course during that time period. And all of your colleagues are also just doing the one course. So it really creates a unique learning environment that you wouldn't get anywhere else. And field trips that are incorporated into the academics, where you learn things outside of the classroom. You'll also hear from guest speakers. You'll be on site and experiencing what you're learning in the course. And of course, communication and presentation skills. Because our classes are so small, you will have the opportunity to interact, to present, and to develop those skills. Personal development is also a big part of summer abroad. We hear time and again about students making lifelong friends in these programs. Everyone is kind of thrown into this new environment and do develop great relationships pretty quickly. At the same time, you also gain independence and confidence. For some students, it might be the first time that they have lived away from home or the first time they've traveled internationally. And having the support of summer abroad while you're doing that is really a great way to gain those independence and skills. And finally, professional benefits. So building your network. Many of our professors tell us later that students come to them for reference letters. And this is because they really get to know their students and you really get to know your profs. As well, some students may feel really inspired by the location and make decisions about graduate school or new career directions. So it's really great for all of these reasons to participate in a summer abroad. So eligibility, U of T students would need to be in good academic standing. So if you are currently on probation or on suspension, you would not be able to participate this year. You would have to wait until your standing is back to good standing. If you have completed one or more courses, you have to have a CGPA of at least 1.75. That's the minimum cutoff point. First year students with no final grades can also apply to the program as long as they have successfully completed their first term of study. And we ask you in general with summer abroad to check the individual course descriptions on the website to see if there are any prerequisites for your particular course. For this course in Antigua, there aren't any stated prerequisites for it. And finally, students from other North American universities can also participate. We often have a handful of visiting students who will participate in our programs, so they are welcome to apply as well. If you have any friends studying at another university who may want to join you, they are eligible too. They would just need to reach out to us and we would walk them through the process. So let's get to the Antigua program. So the program dates are July 5th to 26th. Those are the dates that you're actually on site in Antigua. There are also 4 online classes, 2 before the program and 2 after the program, which are mandatory for you to attend as well. Your accommodations and meals. So students will be staying at the Hawksbill Resort. I've put the website here. You can just Google Hawksbill Resort Antigua. And all students stay in double accommodation. With our meal plan, all meals are included in your fees. So you don't have to worry about purchasing meals. That's breakfast, lunch, and dinner. One thing to note that although it is an all-inclusive plan, alcohol is excluded from that plan. And we ask you to budget approximately $150 for some extra meals or snacks that you might want to purchase on field trips or while you're traveling. Again, that's just an approximation. If you plan on purchasing more food or more snacks, you can always budget a little bit more for that. And here is just a picture of the Hawksbill Resort. It looks like a beautiful resort. You'll be able to find more information and reviews online when you look it up. So in terms of getting there, So we don't organize a group flight, as in we don't purchase a block of seats on a particular flight. So students do make their own travel arrangements. You would be booking yourself onto your own flight. But we do provide a recommended flight. So after admission, you will hear from us with a lot of information. One of the post-acceptance steps is about travel, and we will recommend a flight to you. The one that we have recommended this year is a WestJet flight. There aren't that many options for Antigua, so we found the most reasonable direct flight there. So you would then book yourself onto that flight, but we do provide airport pickup, which the hotel will be providing to us. So as long as you're there when the group arrives or before the group arrives, even if you're flying from a different place, flying on a different airline, you can still meet the airport transfer at the airport. So we also set up a student social media group ahead of time, quite early in the post-admission process. So we'll ask a student to come forward and create some sort of channel for students to use. Some years it's Instagram, sometimes it's Discord. It's up to you. We just send out the link. The Summer Abroad office isn't part of it. It's a way for students to connect ahead of time. And we find that students will start chatting about their flight plans and will be able to kind of meet people there if they want to travel together. We also will be having a meet and greet in probably actually in April, where students in all of our summer abroad programs can come and just drop in, pick up a swag bag and meet other people in your program. And then we will be having a pre-departure orientation that takes place online. And that will be either end of May or early June, where we talk about really detailed things about the program, a detailed schedule. Like I said, meeting the on-site coordinator, things like that will be covered in the pre-departure orientation. So in terms of visas and insurance, all students are responsible for arranging their own visa if necessary and making sure that they meet the travel requirements for their destination. So we do provide supporting documents if you find that you do need to apply for a visa. After you've paid your deposit, you can contact us at Summer Abroad, and we will provide you with a letter that kind of outlines the program, confirms that you have accommodations, and so on. Canadian citizens can check the Government of Canada website to see what their entry requirements will be, and international students, you can check with the Antigua Consulate General. We encourage you to apply in Toronto, if at all possible. And that way we can easily supply any supporting documentation for you, especially if you need it urgently. We also recommend that you review your own terms and conditions of your travel health insurance, as well as any cancellation insurance for any flight bookings that you are making on your own. So we'll talk a little bit about the costs. So I've just done a screenshot here from our website. This probably looks familiar. This is the section on Antigua and Barbuda. And the side panel here has a menu for costs. So once you go to that page, you will see a detailed breakdown. And it looks something like this. So on the right-hand side is just a screenshot from the website. It differs slightly if you're domestic or international because the course fee is slightly higher for international. But these are the breakdown of the fees. So there are certain fees that are paid to Summer Abroad. This includes your course fee or tuition, your field trip fees, and all of your accommodation and the meal plan. So that is paid to Summer Abroad. For this program, for a domestic student, it's $9,520. There are also incidental fees, which you pay on Acorn, and those are paid once we add the course for you in April or May. So you'll see that charge appear. That can vary depending on which college you're in, also depending if you're in other on-campus courses in the summer, but that's an approximation of that from last summer. As well, there's estimated additional costs. So these are the ones that are not paid to U of T. A ballpark figure for the flight and meals is about $13.50. So that's how we get the total, which you see the approximate total on the bottom of the screen when you're on that page. And this is the financial aid tab on our website. So I've just circled it here. Sometimes it's a little tricky to find. It's just in the upper ribbon. If you click on financial aid, you'll see all these categories of information here, which I encourage you to look into. Our director also recently did a whole webinar about funding your summer abroad, which is really helpful. And that is also posted on this page. So I recommend you take a look at that webinar as you start budgeting for your program. So final payments for the program are due on April 8th. We do have quite a lot of summer abroad awards, which are applicable to all of our programs. They range anywhere from $1,300 to $7,000, depending on the award and depending on the program. And you apply for these at the same time as you're applying for the summer abroad program. So it's very streamlined. It's one application, and you get it all done in the one spot. And that's for the summer abroad awards specifically. They're open to U of T students who have completed at least 4 full credits by last December. So if you are in first year, you are likely not eligible for the Summer Abroad Awards, but students in second year and higher are eligible. There is a minimum CGPA of 2.25 for the Summer Abroad Awards. That again, that's a minimum. And just one thing to note is it does not cover the full cost of the program. So students are expected to contribute some of the costs. And just to draw your attention to some other awards and bursaries, again, these are noted on our website, and there's a tab for additional awards. When you click on that, it will have links to all of these other awards that are available. So for example, the Center for International Experience has the International Experience or the IE Plus Awards. Often our students qualify for these. You can go ahead and apply for those. One thing to note is that the CIE doesn't usually release the funds until you're already in the program. So it's good for on-site expenses or perhaps paying yourself back, but they don't release the funds in time for our final payment deadline, unfortunately. There's also OSAP that you can look into. If you're currently on OSAP, you can apply for the summer extension. It usually grants roughly around $400 a week for the duration of a program, so it can contribute to some of your expenses. But again, they don't release the funds until the start of the program, and we are not able to defer our April 8th deadline. And one other source to check is definitely your registrar's office. So your college registrar's office may have other awards. I know of several colleges that do. For international travel and international study. So make an appointment with your financial aid advisor at your college and find out if there's any additional awards or bursaries that you can apply for through them. So applications are now open. The deadline to apply is approaching. It is February 4th at 4 p.m. There is a $210 non-refundable application fee. And you can now select also a second choice program. So this enables you to, if you're not admitted to your first choice, to be considered for a second choice without having to fill out a separate application for your second choice. And this is what the application looks like. This is just a screenshot actually from last year, but this is what it's going to look like. And I include this just to show that you want to make sure that all of these sections have a green check mark. That way you know that you've completed all of the steps of the application. And then after you pay your application fee, you then have to go back in and submit your application. So you will get one email from us confirming that you have paid, and then you'll get a second email confirming that your application has been submitted. So the program is not first come, first serve, so you don't have to worry if you haven't submitted your application yet. We start assessing them after the deadline. We look at academic suitability, so we do look at your CGPA. We also pay a lot of attention to your personal statement, as well as recent achievements. So this is part of the online application that really lets you express why you're a good candidate for the program and how the program fits into your personal goals and your academic goals. We also have a separate recorded interview portion of the assessment process. So after you've submitted your application, you will receive a link. The system is called Kira Talent, and it takes you to a platform where you're asked a couple of questions. You're asked 3 questions, which you respond to by video, and then you're asked to do a short written paragraph as well. and you're not expected to overly prepare for these. These are questions about adaptability, about general travel experience you may have, problem solving, things like that. So it's not something that we expect you to prepare for ahead of time. It is good to note too, since the application is due on February 4th, you may want to get your application submitted online a couple of days beforehand. That way, when you get the interview link, you have time to go and do that when it's a good time for you. And again, it can be done 24/7. It's not a live interview. It's something that is just that you record on the platform. There's also some how-to videos on our website, which our student ambassadors have put together. So when you go to the Apply tab, I encourage you to check out those videos as well. All right, and now we want to talk more about the course that you're going to be taking there. We have Professor Kamari Clark with us, and I invite you, Kamari, to let us know a little bit about your course. So I'm going to stop sharing. And you'd like to share your screen?
Yeah, that would be great. Thanks,
Great.
Genevieve. Um, okay, can you see the screen there?
Yes.
Okay, great. Let's see if I can advance it. All right. So thank you, Genevieve. I'm happy to talk about the plans for the course. Many of you know that I'm a professor at the University of Toronto, the director of criminology and sociolegal studies. And one of the questions that you might have is why have we introduced this new course in Antigua and Barbuda to the criminology summer course list? In the past, many of our courses were Europe based, so in Oxford, in Italy, in France, and we wanted to introduce a course in the global south and raise some of the complex problems around law inequality that students have been learning about, reading about, experiencing in their courses. And so this Antigua and Barbuda course is a case study in thinking about some of those questions in the global south. I should also say that I have taught a number of summer abroad courses in the past. In 2018, I brought students to the Netherlands, to the International Criminal Court, to look at the making of international justice at the ICJ, International Court of Justice. In 2022, I brought students and taught a course in Rwanda around the post-genocide context. And then of late, that last summer in Colombia, in a place called Cali in Colombia. So that's a site of transitional justice. So this will be a new site in many ways for criminology, also a new site for me and in teaching in the Caribbean at the University of the West Indies campus, but very much in keeping with a lot of the work and the kinds of content that we've been teaching through criminology and socio-legal studies. Now, the course schedule, Genevieve did talk a little bit about the course schedule. The course starts July 2nd online. So, second and third, we have an online segment, and then we have 3 weeks in person in Antigua. And then we have a final 2 days in the fourth week, the final week online. And that's July 30th and 31st. In many ways, I would describe this as an immersive learning experience. Much of my teaching involves deep reflection, reading, free writes, and this is a wonderful opportunity to be in the site of thinking about some of the challenges around justice, law, and inequality, as well as some of the problems around crime and criminality. But thinking about these questions in relation to historical context in which they're operating, and that is in the wake of the plantation. So many of you already know that what the Caribbean looks like. We just decided to do a zoom in where Antigua and Barbuda can be located in relation to the larger Caribbean region. And so, as you can see in this imagery, you have Cuba, one of the biggest islands, Haiti, Dominican Republic. And if you look at the Antilles and the Leeward Islands on the right, the far right, Antigua is located along the Lesser Antilles region in the Caribbean region. Now, history is important in the course, but it's not a historical course. What do I mean by that? What I mean is that to understand the present, we need to think about the past and how the past shapes and constructs the nature of the present. And so part of the immersive experience involves thinking about the ways that the past, the plantation, and the history of the plantation in the region in and what led into independence and then later emancipation is very much a part of the contemporary challenges in the region. And so we will start the course by thinking conceptually about what kind of past we're talking about. How did the island come of age? What were some of the challenges? What did independence mean? What did emancipation mean? And then how does that play into the contemporary issues that we have in the region? Now, I wanted to mention the in many ways the course is organized around a particular problem set. So some of the things that you might read about in relation to Antigua is that it's a twin island nation, so it's Antigua and Barbuda, and it's located in the Eastern Caribbean. It's a very small. It has a small population of less than 100,000 people, English-speaking nation. The nation achieved emancipation in 1834 and then independence in 1981. Um, it has 365 beaches. There's an ongoing joke about there being a beach for every day of the year in Antigua, and that's one of the sort of tourism claims to fame. And it's organized in terms of the regional politics. It's a CARICOM member, so this Caribbean community of regional governance diplomacy is part of the ways that governance takes shape alongside its own independent governance structure. Now, and of course, tourism is the basis for its majority of its GDP. And that sets up a paradox, of course, for this island state. And that paradox is central to the ways that some of the problems that we'll engage in as we learn together in the course. And so, despite its tourism economy, its ports, its flights, its development gains over the last 30 years, Antigua as an island state still has a whole set of capacity constraints. There are also issues around safety and rising levels of crime and a lack of institutional trust in the legal system and in these domains of justice in the region. And of course, this is part and parcel of what produces a development paradox and is very much the focus of the class. So, how do we think about both tourism and the means through which people make a living and the quality of life and the independence gains alongside general mistrust, rising costs, and rising crime levels, etc., and some of the constraints around an economy where the majority of food products are imported from elsewhere, from the region, from North America, from China, and elsewhere. And so this is part of the paradox in the class as we think about what law and justice means, how we understand history, and how we can see it throughout the Caribbean landscape. So our academic home in Antigua will be at UWI. We call it UWI or UWI, the University of the West Indies, and it's the Five Islands campus. It's a new campus that's part of the UWI system. The UWI system is a regional institution. 18 English-speaking Caribbean countries participate in this educational, university-based educational system. It was established in 1948. And of course, it operates on multiple campuses across the region. Some of the most prominent have been the UWI Mona campus in Jamaica, as well as Cave Hill in Barbados and St. Augustine in Trinidad. And so at the UWI Five Islands campus in Antigua, it was opened only in 2019. And in many ways, it has focused on science, technology, and regional development. They just opened a new criminology department a couple of years ago, and their plans to create to build out a law school. And so this is a wonderful opportunity for us to be in conversation with them as they, in our criminology program, as we work alongside them in their space and in their region. The accommodation, I think, is wonderful. Last year we went and visited the campus, had meetings. We visited some of the potential housing locations, and the one we selected was this Hawksbill Hotel, which is a resort only steps away from the campus, which is really convenient. And so you'll be going between the resort and campus, as well as the Five Islands region. But you'll also have an opportunity through class trips to visit the entire island as well as Barbuda. And so there are a lot of opportunities for you in that regard. So that's the Hawksbill Hotel. Let me just say a few more things about what the course is about. Earlier, I talked about the role of history and the importance of history, especially colonial legal inheritance, that is part of the contemporary judicial system in the region, and that there's a tension there. And you'll learn about that. We'll engage in that. We'll work on assignments and problems in relation to law and the legal imbrications in the region and its contemporary significance. We'll also think about things like the way that land and access to land has um, been an important part of the independent struggles. And one of the case studies will be in Barbuda, a place that's seen as having communal land rights. We'll also think about decolonial movements, and we'll meet some practitioners and activists who are doing reparations work in relation to some of the aspects of the law and legality and their attempts to push for particular kinds of rights, including land, beach rights, beachfront rights, and other forms of rights. And one of the quite special components of the class will involve thinking about some of the regional formations around governance in the region. So not just in relation to Antigua, but in the region, the Caribbean Court of Justice. And we'll think about some of the cases underway. You'll get a chance to meet some of the judges that are sitting on the court and to meet scholars who are working on issues related to the CCJ and what it means to reconcile a fraught history and a complex and paradoxical region and these new ventures into I guess new justice avenues through the CCJ, the Caribbean Court of Justice. There are a range of learning objectives for the class. There are six that I've elaborated in the syllabus and here today. The first is historical and contemporary intersections of law, culture, and power. The second having to do with and developing an ability to evaluate colonial and post-colonial legal structures through a range of frameworks. The third having to do with experiential learning, of course, through site visits, through field research when you're in Antigua and Barbuda. The fourth having to do with developing a critical understanding of justice-making practices and their socio-legal implications. The fifth has to do with applying interdisciplinary approaches to the ways that we think about legal pluralism, history, culture, cultural identity in the general Black Atlantic world. And the sixth is to collaborate through group work uh, over the course of the summer on particular projects with classmates. So interviews, talk shows, debates. We'll have a lot of fun ways of approaching this learning. Someone's trying to call me, so I'm a bit distracted there. I refuse the call. Okay, so in terms of course structure, the course is divided into week 1, 2, 3, and 4. and we'll move into, after we look at the foundations in the Caribbean and legal history, we'll move into thinking about governance institutions, so courts, constitutions, and how they work and play themselves out in practice. And in week 3, we'll think about crime, policing, punishment, as well as alternate justice systems. And in week 4, we'll reflect on land and reparations, as well as other forms of epistemologies through which to think about justice and rights. And we'll end with final group presentations. A fun part of this immersive learning involves field visits. There are many field visits. And let me give you an example. So when we start the course, we'll think about the history and foundations of violence in the region. And within the first week, you'll have a chance to visit the Museum of Antigua and Barbuda, which has exhibits of the geology and the geography in the region. We'll go to a real plantation that dates back to the mid 1600s, and it was one of the island's first large-scale sugar plantations that is now a tourist site. And then we will also go to another museum, which is known as Dow's Hill, and it offers a multimedia presentation of the transformations of the island over time. We also have things like you'll visit the prison, one prison in particular called His Majesty's Prison in St. John's in the capital. We'll go to one of the rehabilitation centers, especially for youth. It's like a jail, but it's a rehab site. You'll meet a couple of the justices. That's on day 8. You will get to go to the High Court of Justice in the capital in St. John's, as well as the Parliament building. So we'll have a chance to think about many of the institutions of justice, the sites of justice, the sites of policing. We also have a number of activists and scholars who will talk about particular case studies. In this one in particular on day 10, having to do with property and dispossession. So people who are working on land rights and mostly beachfront rights, which is a major issue in many of these island states. And then a spectacular day that we're planning is a field trip to Barbuda. Earlier, I was talking about Barbuda being a site where people are insisting on the collective rights, land rights in the region, which is unprecedented that the Constitution has a provision for collective land rights. And there are a number of controversies around long land rights that are underway in this region, land rights versus development and tourism. And so there's some key issues there that will help us to think about justice, what it means in relation to Antigua and Barbuda's history, and how we can think about these questions analytically in this region, especially in the Caribbean, where tourism is one of the major sources of income. Okay. Now, let me just go quickly to a slide that I missed, because many of you might be wondering, well, what is the assessment? How will you evaluate us? Is this a hard course? Will it involve the teaching style that works for me, etc.? So here's the breakdown for the course.
Sorry, Kamari, can I just
Yes,
interrupt for a second? I'm so
of course.
sorry. But your slides seem to be stuck. I see the first 4, but your
Oh,
slides have not been moving on our end. I thought it was maybe
oh,
mine, but then I noticed a student mentioned it in the Q&A as well,
oh,
that they
okay.
weren't.
They weren't seeing it. Oh,
Yeah.
hmm, that's too bad. So, well,
Like we could see your PowerPoint, and we could see some of your slides on the side, but
okay.
it wasn't moving.
Oh,
So
odd.
we've
Okay.
seen the first 4.
Okay. Let me try again I'm not sure why that would be,
I
but
know it's very strange because I'm sure you could see it moving on your end.
yeah. Can you see the slide now?
Yes,
The
yes,
assessment overview?
yeah. And now if you move the slide, let's just see if you're able to. Yes,
Okay,
now it's
there.
working. Okay.
Oh, that's
All
too
right,
bad.
great.
Okay. Um, well, So let me just talk about the assessment overview, and maybe what I can do is just flip through the slides that I
Yeah.
did refer to so that people also get a sense of the visuals.
Yes.
Um, so in relation to the assessment overview, as I was saying, many of you might be wondering, how will it work? How will we be evaluated? 20% of the grade is response papers, so you'll have required reading, and then you'll write basic responses to those readings, your own reflections, on a weekly basis. Uh, and then you will also have a field observation report, and that's worth 20%. A final paper and presentation, and that's group work. So we'll divide students into four groups. If we have 20 students in the class, so four groups or five groups, depending on the numbers. And that will be worth 40% of the grade. So both a group paper as well as a presentation. And then finally, class participation is another 20%. Now, did you see this slide? What is the course about, Genevieve?
No.
No? Okay. So just to backtrack then, the this was the slide that really details the ways that I have conceptualized the organization of the course, starting with the colonial legal inheritance, especially as it relates to law, but also as it relates to other foundational issues that structure and made possible the island. We'll think about the plantation economies, and we'll think about then sort of activist work and political work, sort of governance work around justice. And then finally, we'll look and reflect on these struggles for regional justice mechanisms. So, regional courts like the Caribbean Court of Justice, what we call the CCJ. And so, those are four core ways of conceptualizing what the course is about. Um, Earlier, I also showed this slide, which is just an image of some of the field sites for the field visits. So we'll start by reflecting on the foundations of the making of Antigua as a region and its plantation history. We have some field visits underway, the museum, a real life plantation that is a tourist site now, but in its foundations date back to the mid 1600s, and then Dow's Hill, another museum site. And so the early part of the course will start with some of these grounding reflections on the early making of the island state. Um, we will also attend or go to one of the prisons. It's called His Majesty's Prison in the capital, as well as a rehab center. So you can see the image there. We'll meet some justices that serve on the Caribbean Court, the CCJ, the Caribbean Court of Justice, and there'll be two of them who will join us during a class, and we'll talk about some of the regional challenges that they're dealing with, both in relation to the Privy Council and sort of histories of lawmaking and some of the contemporary challenges. This slide was another slide that I reviewed. It shows the Parliament building and the High Court of Justice. That will be also a tour. And the way that I've structured it is that 3 days a week will be in the classroom, and 2 days will be in the field on site visits. And you'll have a chance to reflect on what you're reading and writing and learning when we go on these field visits. This was a slide around property and dispossession. Some scholars, lawyers who are working on beachfront rights, and so they'll join us and talk about these problems of property and dispossession in relation to the island's economy. And as I was saying, a really wonderful um, field study will be our trip, a 1 day trip to Barbuda. Earlier, I was talking about collective land ownership in the region. And so we'll go and we'll meet with some people who are working on some of the jurisprudence around land ownership. And they're gonna stage a public debate and discussion about some of these quite vehemently debated issues around land and collective ownership of land. And then in terms of the departure, so we will leave the island on the 26th of July, and then we'll have two final meetings on Zoom, and that's when the group presentations will happen via Zoom on the 31st, the 30th and the 31st of July. I should also say that Carnival is also happening in the last couple of days of our course. And so you will have some challenges, of course, because Carnival is both a historical and a contemporary celebration of life. And our course ends during that time. So, but it also is a nice time to be on the island and to reflect on what carnival and joy and the kind of politics around what it means to engage in the kind of fantasy of carnival means and does in a Caribbean context. And so we'll end there with um, during that period, during carnival. And let me end then here by saying that some of you might be asking, well, why should I take this course? Why would it really matter? What does it have to do with law and socio-legal studies? In many ways, the course is an important course in that it will allow us to prioritize people in the region, Caribbean voices, the scholarship, as well as ways of knowing that are often marginalized in Western academia. It'll also give us a chance to think about and the colonial assumptions that have shaped and structured Caribbean life, including life in Antigua and Barbuda. And so you'll learn to be critically engaged and to think about these legal frameworks in relation to their inheritance, or their colonial and British inheritance. We'll also connect law to lived experiences, and there'll be many examples of doing that in Barbuda, in on some of the field sites and field trips that we'll take. And then finally, it would be a wonderful course for those of you who are interested in doing global justice work, whether if it's local for an NGO, whether you want to be lawyers and advocates, or whether you want to work internationally and do diplomatic work, etc. Students will develop skills around critical thinking, look at case studies and have real life case studies, both contemporary legal case studies as well as political and socio-legal case studies as to work through and to think about when we consider global justice. And one exciting example of a case study that we'll spend a day on is the reparations movement and what that means in the contemporary period. Okay, so on that note, we're open for questions. So please feel free, as Genevieve said, and I'm going to pass it over to Genevieve now, but if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat and we'd be happy to answer them.
Yep,
Thank you.
I see one in the Q&A asking what are the class times. So they are Monday through Thursday from 9 to 12, I believe.
Monday through Friday, 9 to 12.
Okay, Monday through Friday. Any other questions for Professor Clark? Okay, I'm just going to share my screen again. Okay, there we go. So yeah, if you think of any other questions, please put them in the Q&A. We'll be wrapping up the session pretty shortly. Just a few other things to review before we wrap things up. So the admission timeline and accepting an offer. Oops. Here we go. I hope you can all see my screen okay. So you will
Yeah,
be
fine.
notified. Thanks. You will be notified as to the admission decisions by the last week of February. And all students will be notified by email. So whether you are admitted or whether you're not admitted or put on the waiting list, you will hear from us that week, the last week of February. And this will also be the same day that the Summer Abroad Awards decisions are released. So if you've applied for a Summer Abroad Award, you'll hear about both your admission status as well as your award status on the same day. At that point, you have 1 week to confirm your participation in the program, and you do so by paying a non-refundable $1,000 deposit. And there are some other steps that you'd also have to complete within that week. The remaining fees are due, as I mentioned before, on April 8th. A couple of other things which I briefly mentioned. We have the meet and greet in early April, the pre-departure orientation, and there's also going to be an online student guide. This kind of goes hand in hand with the material at the pre-departure orientation. So you will be provided a lot more information about traveling, about the site, about your accommodations, about safety and safety resources. That will be provided at the pre-departure orientation and in the online student guide, which you'll have access to. And just to highlight some new things on our website. So we have a section on our website for equity, diversity, inclusion, and accessibility. One of our coordinators has put together a huge amount of information for a wide variety of students. And we have resources for all kinds of student communities. We encourage you to explore this section of our website. There are many opportunities to look at, and we invite you to explore EDIA resources as you consider summer abroad and the opportunities that meet your needs. So we've compiled site-specific resources as well. So different countries can vary in their level of inclusivity, acceptance, and legal protections for various identities. So we encourage you to read up on the Antigua section of our site-specific resources as well on the website. And we have a program coordinator on our team who is dedicated to equity, diversity, inclusion, and accessibility issues and resources. So if you have any questions about material that you've seen on our website, or about safety or accessibility issues that you may have, please feel free to reach out to our program coordinator. And her email address is here, summerabroad.edi@utoronto.ca, if you wanted to discuss anything about your own personal situation. And you can also book an appointment with her as well. So in terms of accessibility abroad, so students who require accommodations, such as extra time to complete assignments, adaptive technology, barrier-free environment, sign language interpreters, you should register ahead of time with your own campus's accessibility services office so that an accommodation plan can be put in place. So if you do have an accessibility requirement, we ask that you upload your letter of accommodation to the Summer Abroad program within 7 days of being admitted to the Summer Abroad course. So at the same time that you're paying your deposit, you're going to upload your letter of accommodation so that we can put in place a plan for you. So one thing to note is that the range of accommodations differs from country to country. And for that reason, we can't guarantee that sites will be able to offer all of the accommodations that you may have available here at U of T. So again, for that reason, we do encourage you to reach out to us, reach out to the Summer Abroad office as early as possible to discuss which sites might best suit your needs and so that we can provide the best possible student experience. And another thing to note, we have a special Summer Abroad EDI award, and this is awarded to undergraduate students participating in a summer abroad program based on academic achievement, financial need, and recent contributions to the advancement of equity, diversity, and inclusion. Preferences given to Black and Indigenous students. And there are 4 awards available for $5,000. So these, again, you would apply for them because it's a Summer Abroad Award. You can apply for it at the same time as you are applying for your Summer Abroad program. It's all within the same application. And again, we have a section on our website where we profile previous award winners. So definitely have a look at that as well. And finally, just a reminder, if you don't already, to follow us on Instagram. We have amazing student stories there, photos, videos. So definitely check that out. And our student ambassadors continue to post on there about upcoming events as well. So do follow us on Instagram. And stay in touch lots of other ways. So it's great to attend the program information sessions. If you're interested in other programs, we have some more coming up in the coming weeks. We have an e-newsletter that you can sign up for on our website. And definitely, you can always reach us by booking a virtual appointment. So you can book an appointment with me. We can have a meeting on Teams. If you have any concerns or want a little bit more information about the application process, the assessment process, please feel free to reach out. So that's pretty much it for our presentation today. And I can also put you in touch with Professor Clark if you have a more academic question. We can always correspond by email if you wanted to reach out after the session. So thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Professor Clark. Thank you, Selena. And thank you everyone who came to today's session. So good luck with your applications. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.